have to become to stop men like him?
The night is darkest just before the dawn. I promise you, the dawn is coming.
Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama. Welcome to our channel, Paws On Animation, and our special podcast.
And today we are covering The Dark Knight.
Yes, this is the sequel to Batman Begins with Christian Bale, my favorite Batman, and my favorite Batman movie. The Dark Knight stands out because it changed things for superhero movies and all movies in general.
Yes.
Forever. Around the world.
Yes.
It's directed by Christopher Nolan from a screenplay written by his brother Jonathan based on the DC comic superhero Batman.
Yes.
And the standout, of course, for the performance is Heath Ledger,
yes,
who has made history, and every Joker and every villain has attempted to match up to his performance, even to this day.
Right.
But
before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, notifications on future podcasts and multiple videos.
And thank you so much for joining us today, subscribing, sharing videos, commenting, everything you do. We appreciate you so much, and thank you for joining us this Spooktober.
Yes.
So, if you haven't already, we covered Batman Begins last week.
Yes.
It's coming up now if you want to check it out. We promised you we would cover the sequel, and that is why we are covering it now. We did watch it immediately after covering the first movie.
Right.
So, what's really odd about watching this movie is you think you remember everything about it, and then you watch it, and then you see there's so much that happens within the time frame of this movie that, oh, wow, I didn't recall it being this dark, The Dark Knight.
Right.
And this much going on, but there is.
Right. And we say that it's been considered the best in the trilogy because it was the standout movie really at the time. Not knowing this was become a trilogy. First movie already stood out. But the second one seemed to up the ante in every aspect. So much so that, again, superhero movies wanted to be like The Dark Knight and make these really dark, gritty, high action, high stakes, high mortality rate type movies where, oh, this is how superhero movies should be before we adjusted to having different kinds later. But this was pretty much setting the bar for what a superhero movie should be.
And for what any type of production Hollywood should be, where this much time and effort and writing and production and a cast of excellent actors is put into it as well. Like you said, it set the bar for years to come. Which now doesn't happen because when something's really good, then they pan it and talk about it and ridicule it so they don't have to raise their standards. But that's another video. For those of you not familiar with The Dark Knight, it came out in 2008. As you mentioned, it's a superhero film directed again by Christopher Nolan from a screenplay co-written by Christopher Nolan with his brother Jonathan.
Oh, actually didn't know that.
It is based on the DC comic superhero Batman. As we mentioned, it's the sequel to Batman Begins, which came out in 2005, and the second in the trilogy. You've got some new characters in this movie that appear, including Two-Face and Joker. And this was definitely a box office success.
Absolutely.
Runtime 152. It released in 3 different times in July of 2018. On the 14th in New York City, on the 18th in the U.S., and on the 25th in the UK. It had a budget of $185 million.
Yes.
It grossed over $1 billion.
Dang.
Which in 2008 was a heck of a thing to accomplish.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was something almost unheard of for any movie, let alone a superhero movie. And again, it keeps showing how much this was a game changer for Hollywood and comic book movies in general. And you could tell that, you know, at that time, people usually reference things or did parodies of things of movies that were out at the time in the same year, within the same few months. So sometimes jokes could even end up being faded by the time you get to now. But for this is one of those movies that was everywhere all the time. It was constantly talked about, constantly referenced, constantly had parodies and stuff of it. People reenacting scenes from it. This was such a success. It was really the buzz of the town every single day for the longest time up until it was getting time for The Dark Knight Rises.
Yes. Now, some interesting things happened with the casting for this movie. First off, you had a replacement for Katie Holmes for the role of Rachel. She was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal. And
interesting choice.
Yes. And the second thing is, some of the choices for some of the performers that were new additions were not appreciated at the time of casting.
Right.
First, the sequel was considered a reinvention of the Batman series, as we mentioned with Batman Begins.
Right.
This story was developed, the story elements were developed by Christopher Nolan and the Batman Begins co-writer David S. Goyer. And as we mentioned, Nolan wrote the script with his brother. Now, The Dark Knight was marketed with a new type of interactive campaign that focused on countering criticism of Heath Ledger. Now, when he was cast, people were saying he was a poor choice to portray Joker.
Right.
And that's because they had seen him in movies that were nothing like this.
Right.
He did comedic roles, he did action and adventure, but he had never done anything of this caliber. And this just goes to show you shouldn't pigeonhole and say what an actor can or can't do.
Right.
You don't know their abilities and their talents. A lot of times in any, I would say in any type of work, people in general are pigeonholed into certain areas that people decide are their forte or their specialties, but you never really know what a person can and can't do. Heath Ledger proved that.
Yes.
He had what were considered soft roles, and then with this role, he left a legacy. He died from an accidental prescription drug overdose in January of 2008, and he never got to see the success of this movie.
Oh, wow.
In July.
And I do remember that was like all over the news at the time the movie was out. Not just because it was a huge success, but because of what happened behind the scenes, and led them to wonder how much was going on during filmmaking, too.
Right. Not only was his performance critically acclaimed, he received several awards posthumously, including an Academy Award, a BAFTA, and Golden Globe Awards for Best Supporting Actor, making The Dark Knight the first comic book film to receive major industry awards. Including his performance, and because of his performance, the movie also broke several box office records and became the highest grossing movie of 2008, the fourth highest grossing film in that time, and the highest grossing superhero film.
Yeah.
Before Marvel began making theirs and got so carried away with the billions that now we have just an oversaturation of superhero films that never would have happened if it hadn't been for Disney. Shame on you, Disney.
Right.
So let's go into this movie. As we mentioned, the two villains that are featured in this movie are Two-Face, who was not a villain in the beginning,
Right.
and the Joker.
Right. And it was interesting how they decided to connect the two characters, because Joker almost appears out of nowhere. Because the movie starts off with a bank heist with seemingly unrelated robbers, and they're talking about the character. Then when you actually do see Joker, you don't see him become Joker or anything. He's already this persona. And you kind of wonder, well, how did he get like this in this version? Well, he tells you about the smile and scars on his face, but every time he talks to somebody, the story changes. So you really don't know how this Joker became to be Joker. He was just already psycho the minute you see him.
Yes.
And then he, in turn, leads to the creation of Two-Face, because for this movie, Joker wants to show or prove that people will always choose the easiest way out or the darkest route because they believe in their own justice and they don't care about anyone else. And to the point where all the schemes and things, whether they involve money or not, and the people we worked with, well, they seem to see him as unorthodox because, you know, they're doing the stuff because they're thinking they're going to get money. And one of two most iconic scenes is that he takes his half of the money that they got and he burns it.
Yes.
And they're freaking out because they're like, what are you doing? We went through all that for it. He said, oh, it's just my half. You can keep yours. For me, it's not about the money. It's about the message I'm sending to the city. And he was really willing to do away with all of that just to prove his twisted ideals are true.
But he didn't even have to burn the money.
Right.
He could have done that without burning the marriage. But he's a Joker.
Right? So, and this just proves it.
And that leads to a quote that was made by Alfred when he told Batman that he's thinking of people who are working on cause and effect or on things that relate and make sense. He said, Master Wayne, some men just want to see the world burn.
Yes.
And that is one of the most famous quotes ever.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that has proven true in our world.
Yes.
Some people don't care about the tangible things that other people care about. They care about, as you said, their ideals or their agendas and different things. This movie sets so many precedents. And as you mentioned, it also reflected so many ways in which our society had changed after 9/11.
Right.
This was really a movie that did so much, not only for the iconoclast, but also for pop culture, also for movie making, also for just history in general.
Yeah.
Also for psychological understanding of the common man of different things that goes on.
Right.
And who would ever thought all this was about from a comic book movie or a movie based on comic book?
Right. Because this version of Joker, like you said, left a legacy. Another quote that was used in here is when Harvey Dent said, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, which happens to him, and it actually does happen in a lot of comic book movies or things where they'll have a hero that lives so long you think they get taken out, but something happens and they end up becoming the villain, and they see this thing. A lot of these things they've said in this movie have come about. And as for the legacy of Joker, not only did it influence Joker's incarnations from that point on, all of them tried to be Heath Ledger and couldn't do it, but also influenced how the villains work now altogether, because the meme where they say we live in a society all came from this. It pinpoint on so many things at one time that it still happens to this day.
Two things, and in addition to what you said. One, Rachel, the character Rachel, who was made specifically for Rachel Dawes made for this movie, as we mentioned, was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Well, there wasn't a chance she was going to be in 3 because there's no spoilers. This movie is from 2008. Her character is taken out. That was also a first to happen in a superhero film that was live action.
Yeah.
The character is taken out and she doesn't return. There's no miraculous recovery.
Right.
She's gone. Now, another thing that was something that didn't really happen is that the Joker in this movie wasn't taken out. It's obvious they intended on bringing the Joker back in the 3rd movie, but because of Heath Ledger's death, they didn't. What I really respect about Nolan and Warner Brothers and all the people involved, unlike Marvel and Disney thinking you just can replace someone with another person or wrap a movie and make a sequel without the darn person being in it who helped to make a success, they did not cast someone else or replace Joker. They moved on to another villain, not as an interesting villain, Bane, in the 3rd movie, but they did. I really respect that because they showed and proved that not everyone thinks everyone is easily replaced. They knew he could not be replaced. His performance was one of a kind. They left it alone. They let you think the Joker was still in Arkham, and they moved on to another villain. And I have to applaud that. We're moving on to someone else. We know Heath Ledger has done something in history that to this date and to this year in 2025 has not been done again by any other actor.
That's true, absolutely. And as we go through the actors, like we said, pretty much all the actors from the first movie that were not villains taken out from the first movie all returned. Of course, you know, Christian Bale, of course, the big star. Heath Ledger, of course, was the newest addition. You had Morgan Freeman, you had Michael Caine, and Gary Oldman. And
Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent.
Thanks.
Two-Face.
Right. And what you like is that when they have these new additional characters, they blend right into the cast rather than feel like they're just thrown in to be the new one, and they're new and they stick out like a sore thumb. They seemingly blend into the existing cast. And everyone was a high caliber star. Back when they picked stars for roles they knew would fit, they took the role seriously. It wasn't just on relying on star power for the movie to do well. Like, hey, we got this celebrity in here, we don't have to write anything. They made the story excellent with excellent actors who took the role seriously.
Now, they had a few more additional secondary actors I have to mention because they were big at the time and they were excellent as well. You had Eric Roberts, Michael J. White, and Richie Coster. You also had Anthony Michael Hall appear as a news reporter, which was a big surprise.
Yeah.
You had cameo appearances by Cillian Murphy, who reprised his role as Jonathan Crane. You had Matt Skiba, as well as United States Senator and Batman fan Patrick Leahy.
Yeah.
Who at that time had appeared in multiple movies.
Right.
I also want to mention that we got a little more background information on Commissioner Gordon. We got to see his family.
Yeah.
We got to see his relationship between he and Batman become even closer because, as you know, in the first movie, he encountered him as a kid.
Right.
And he became like a secondary adult mentor for him.
Right.
And in this one, he fulfilled that role, and then they changed places.
Right.
And then he did what Batman wanted, even though he didn't want to do it. He didn't want how the movie ended to end it.
Right.
But that's how it was, and it was another first for movies.
Right.
So lastly, I want to point out a few other things because you've already gone over the cast, and this also reflects just how important this movie still is in 2025. Since its release, Dark Knight was assessed as one of the greatest superhero films ever, as you were mentioning, one of the best movies of the 2000s, and one of the best films ever made. It's considered the blueprint for many modern superhero films, particularly for its rejection of a typical comic book movie style, unlike Marvel, in favor of a crime film that features comic book characters. Now, many filmmakers sought to repeat its success by emulating its gritty, realistic tone to various degrees of success. The Dark Knight is being analyzed for its themes of terrorism and the limitations of morality and ethics. The United States Library of Congress selected it for its presentation in the National Film Registry in 2020. And The Dark Knight Rises concludes the Dark Knight trilogy, which came out 4 years later in 2012.
Accolades everywhere.
Yes. So, if you've seen The Dark Knight, we know you have.
Right.
Let us know in the comments. Was this your favorite Batman movie of the trilogy? Is this performance of Heath Ledger one of your favorites? Do you have other Batman movies you like better? Let us know what you think. And let us know for you, does this fit the Spooktober ambiance?
Yes.
We think it does, and that's why we want to share it with you.
Yes. And if y'all don't already, subscribe for updates, weekly reviews for anime series, anime shows, all things animation, and of course, Batman.
Yes, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. Come back and tell us what you think.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us, sharing our videos, and commenting. As always, guys,
you are special. I'm Rascal Entertainment.
And I'm Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.